Welcome back to Today in Atlanta Sports. It is January 27th. I am your host, Chase Earl, joined by my co host, Alex Lord. We finally had a team in action Friday night as the Hawks looked for their fifth straight win over the Kings. And it started slowly, fell behind 12, gave up 30 plus points in the first quarter. And you're like, damn, are we back? But they turned things on in a big way. Probably, I don't think there's any doubt about it, easily the best quarter of basketball they ever played in the second, winning 46-17. And I think the best part about it was led by the bench. As the Hawks get healthy, this bench is getting better. And two guys really stood out, Onyeka Okongwu, Bogdan Bogdanovic. They were the two leading scorers for the Hawks on the night, but they dominated both ends of the floor. Bogey, first game back, too. Didn't miss a beat, hot as hell, had 16 points in the second quarter in the first half. And Okongwu, he brought energy into that stadium. You were there. How was it watching him fly around in that second quarter?
It was incredible. There was Big O chants, so it looks like that nickname is definitely sticking with most of the fan base. The energy in the building for a Wednesday night was surprising. The attendance was really good. I was shocked by that. But that alley-oop that he had, blew the roof off of the building. Everybody was on their feet after that. But what was more surprising was, and I know you talked about it, was Lou Will's jam. I haven't seen him get up like that in a decade. It was
I
incredible.
didn't even know he still could do that.
Yeah. I think everybody in the building was a little surprised. I think the Hawks themselves were surprised.
I didn't know who it was when it first happened. I was like, who the hell was that? That looked like a point guard. Is that DeLon Wright? And then they were like, Lou Williams. I was like, bro, 6'1", 35-year-old Lou Williams just went up and grabbed that. But let's show this. I have this video clip of the jam from Okongwu if you did not get to see it last
Hustle
night.
To come up with that loose ball. Bogey to Lou on the lob to Okongwu, and he one-hand.
That is not many people can do that. Reach back, grab it. He's one of the most athletic players in the NBA. He's so young, only in his second year. I'm just going to say it. I think he's going to be an all-star. I think he's that good. I think this is another home run pick by Schlenk. I think he's only going to get better offensively. I wouldn't be surprised 2-3 years from now, Okongwu's out shooting spot-up threes in pick-and-pop situations. I think he's got that much talent. His touch around the rim, even in the mid-range game, is pretty good. His touch at the free throw line, pretty solid. I'm not going to say he's going to be John Collins from three, but he's going to be able to stretch you out from back there. And when he does that, this guy is legitimately the limit. You talked about it in an article. He could be a defensive player of the year. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I would actually expect that he will one day be a defensive player of the year. That's not an overreaction. His touch around the rim is fantastic. He's super athletic. He's strong. He's starting to gain confidence. Think about it. This guy's only really played in probably 30 meaningful NBA games where he's actually gotten minutes as a full-time player, not just in garbage time. And he's looking like this. He is an impact player. I don't know how much longer you can keep giving Clint Capella significantly more minutes than Okongwu. You might still start Capella, but eventually this is going to have to become a 50-50 split, or maybe even more Okongwu than Capella.
Yeah, if he gets a jump shot, watch out. This guy can be one of the best two-way players in the league. I wanted to shout out DeLon Wright, who has just been absolutely fantastic for the Hawks as of late. Him and Gallo have been hot recently from three, and his tenacity on the defensive end of the court. He must have forced 2 or 3 turnovers by himself alone. He's that kind of player that Schlenk was definitely looking for when Trey's that could play with Trey or without Trey. So I think that DeLon Wright signing is already paying dividends, and it should really become clear to all the Hawks fans once the playoffs roll around and everybody's playing good defense. DeLon will step it up a notch.
Yeah, there was a lot of people, especially on Twitter, and I'm not one to hear or to say that I'm always right about the Hawks. I was pretty pissed off at them 2 weeks ago. I felt like they were playing lifeless basketball. It was embarrassing what they were doing on a nightly basis every time they touched the floor. But one thing that I was kind of everyone was like, oh, the only thing we need is a backup point guard. I'm like, I don't think DeLon Wright and Lou Williams, they haven't played great up to this point. I don't think that's the problem. And over this stretch where everyone's kind of gotten healthy and their roles have kind of been diminished a little, so they're not asked to do too much, you can tell they're plenty enough to fill that backup role for Trae Young. I don't think the Hawks need a backup point guard. I just think it's really about getting better defensively. I mean, listen, this is with DeAndre Hunter back, Okongwu, Lou Williams, DeLon Wright playing all like they are. This is a top 3 offense in basketball. Since their winning streak, they're playing like top half of the league defense. If they can get into the top 10, maybe even the top 5 through trade deadline acquisitions, this is all of a sudden a definite Eastern Conference contender. So, I mean, whether that's Ben Simmons or whether it's just finding role players that can play better defense, that's what Travis Schlank's going to be looking to add at the deadline.
Yeah, it's not a coincidence that on this 5-game win streak, they're playing top 10 in defensive rating. They're a top 10 unit. Obviously, that's not the case for the whole season or even, the last 10 games. But in this win streak, they're playing absolutely outstanding defensively.
Yeah, I mean, the last 3 quarters after that bad kind of shaky first quarter, really shaky first 8 minutes where the Kings had about 27 minutes. 27 points in 8 minutes to start the game. They only score 104 in the game. So you show they really tightened it up as well as going on an offensive onslaught. But speaking of trades, we did get like a full trade from this whole Ben Simmons fiasco. And, we know the 76ers wanted to include Tobias Harris. So it's Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris. And the Hawks were going to send back John Collins, Gallinari, and Bogey. Trade for personnel, like talent for talent, even contract for contract. I don't think this is a terrible deal. The problem is it just doesn't fit the Hawks roster. Tobias Harris has shot poorly. He's typically a pretty good shooter, though. Ben Simmons can't shoot. And then you're trading your 3 best shooters in the Hawks. You're trading John Collins, Gallinari, and Bogey, the 3 best shooters on your roster. So all of a sudden you get Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, who can't really play with Clint Capella, and you trade away your 3 best shooters, and now you're left with a very big hole as far as shooting is concerned. So, and in a league where shooting wins, that's the biggest thing probably, along with defense. If you can shoot and play defense, you have a chance to win pretty much any series in basketball these days. And if you just trade away Gallo, Bogey, and Collins, the Hawks can't shoot anymore. So I think the biggest, no way this is going to work is it's just not a good fit.
Yeah, on the court, it's not. It's a wonky fit, but off the court, it kind of handcuffs Schlink for the next few years because those contracts are massive. So it wouldn't necessarily, give him the flexibility needed to see, if it didn't work out, it would be difficult. He'd kind of be digging himself a hole. And if it didn't work out, he'd have to climb out of it. It doesn't seem smart on any level.
Yeah, no, I do wonder if Philadelphia will come back to the table without including Tobias Harris. I think that it would be smart for them to get rid of Ben Simmons. I know they're holding on to this hope that, we can trade for James Harden in the offseason, but then you're punting on this season. You're basically, if you're Philly, you're saying, hey, we're not going to win it all this year. When you look around the association, I would say if Philly can get something good for Ben Simmons this year with the way Joel Embiid's playing, that team can win a championship. I mean, there's no dominant teams. I mean, the Nets, we always keep talking about, the Nets, if they're healthy, if they're this, if they're that. Hey, guess what? They haven't been healthy all year. We don't know if Kyrie can play in home games or away games or whatever the hell his deal is, So I'm just sitting here and I'm like, this is a wide open field, almost like it was last year. I want to say there's more competitive teams. You look at the Warriors, if the Lakers are healthy. But at the same time, if you get to the point where the Bucks were last year, you can win a championship. And I don't think Philadelphia is that far off if they get the right personnel around Joel Embiid. So punting on this year to me, if I'm Joel Embiid, I would be pissed the hell off. I mean, why are we keeping this guy around? I understand you want James Harden, but I think that's a pipe dream. I mean, there's no guarantee you get him in the offseason. So I'm kind of surprised from Philadelphia's perspective. So maybe they do come back to the table here with the Hawks and work something out. But right now, they're just asking for astronomical, ridiculous kind of packages from teams. And it's no surprise that they haven't gotten a deal done for a player who literally hasn't played in 6 months.
Yeah, I have to agree. It is kind of worrisome, though, if you imagine Ben Simmons and KD on the same team. That would be a dangerous duo.
Yeah, especially if you have Kyrie in the mix too, because I mean you got shooters, and the Nets already have enough shooters. I mean Patty Mills, they got plenty of shooters. Joe Harris,
Cam Thomas, baby.
Cam Thomas, they got shooters everywhere. So and then plus you got guys like Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge. It cracks me up looking at their roster. I'm like, dude, I forgot LaMarcus Aldridge. Didn't he retire? He did retire, and then he comes back and he's on the Nets. They even have Paul Millsap. Like they have like the 2017 All-World team. It could have been Team USA 4 years ago. It's really incredible. But moving on from last thing I want to say on the Hawks, huge weekend coming up. Celtics on Friday, Lakers on Sunday, and then I don't want to say it's a back-to-back. I think it's that Tuesday. We get the Suns all at home. We've beaten 5 pretty good teams. I mean, listen, we beat 4 playoff teams in the Sacramento Kings. But that's a good test right there. All at home. I mean, if the Hawks can reel off 3 wins, I'm going to start feeling really, really, really good about this team. Even if they look good in a loss, if they go 2-1 and have a close loss or something. But I think there's a good chance they could reel off 3 wins in this stretch, especially that game against the Suns should be a fun one if they beat the Celtics and Lakers.
Yeah, definitely. Lakers just got AD back. He's looked great thus far. So that Lakers game, I'm excited to see. I think we steamroll the Celtics. I think they're a mess. But I'm excited for that Lakers game. Very excited.
Yeah, and that'll be a fun Sunday of sports. You get the AFC NFC Championship. You also get Hawks Lakers. I would love to go to that Lakers game. You know how much tickets the get-in price is? $200.
That's ridiculous.
$200 is the get-in price. And you know what it is today or tomorrow on Friday? 24 for the Celtics. And the Celtics are a marquee team. I mean, they got a good fan base. It's just like, dude, the Lakers are LeBron James. I mean,
it's the LeBron James effect.
It's crazy. It's crazy. The last thing we're going to talk about today, Lee Smith announces his retirement, but he does leave us with a parting message regarding Arthur Smith, the head coach, saying he is the man for the job as long as he gets the right personnel in place. What do you think about that, Alex?
It's a pretty obvious statement. Head coaches need general managers and general managers need head coaches. You can't do one without the other, vice versa. But it is rather suspicious that a veteran, a well-respected guy around league circles like Lee Smith would come out and just say, he literally said, if Fontenot and his guys can get the right players in here, Arthur Smith will essentially win. That's what he was saying, that Arthur Smith is the guy if they can get players, which, has to be encouraging because, he has been around the league a lot. He's seen what it works and what doesn't work. And if he believes Arthur Smith is a guy, we have to take his word for it. But it is a little shocking that he kind of, he didn't put pressure on Fontenot by any means, but he made it rather obvious that if it fails, it's not going to be on Smith, which is weird.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's weird. I don't really think he meant it like that. I think he's basically just trying to give his vote of confidence to Arthur Smith. I also think most players don't have these great relationships with GMs like they do with their head coach. I mean, their head coach is almost like a brother or a father figure to them. Meanwhile, the GM, they might not have any relationship with. So I think it was more just backing up his guy. And, Lee Smith, as we know, was a huge leader, almost like a second coach to the tight end room and stuff like that. I think he won some weird award. I don't know if it was given by the media of the Falcons or the Falcons also did a lame ass award show for their own players, but he won the glue guy award. So he was like a captain in that locker room. So I do think, what he says carries a lot of weight. So I give Arthur Smith the benefit of the doubt. I just am not the guy who's going to say, hey man, he did great this year. Cause I don't think he did great. I think we won games that we were supposed to win. Did we look great in those games? Did we look great at any point in the season? No. I mean, we didn't look good at any point in the season. Even when we won, it was an ugly, ugly, ugly way of winning. So I can't really get super, super excited. But I do think Arthur Smith, has the makings of a good head coach. He made a lot of rookie mistakes, but it's a first-year head coach, bad roster. Let's see what happens in the coming years.
Yeah, I think you're probably right that it wasn't necessarily a knock at Fontenot just to kind of boost Smith up.
It was a knock on the players in the locker room, though.
That's what I was about to say, though. I do think that he was basically saying in as little words, the reason why we didn't make the playoffs, the reason why we didn't do this, the reason why we didn't do that is because he's basically saying we didn't have the guys. And it was rather obvious, that they didn't have the guys this year, but it's kind of an indictment on Fontenot. I do agree with you that, he's not bashing Fontenot by any means, but it's strange to me. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's stranger to me that he would kind of just basically say, hey, these guys suck. I think it's stranger that you come out of playing with a lot of these guys and he's like, damn, these boys suck. But I mean, he played in Buffalo the year before. You saw that Buffalo team last weekend. I don't blame him for saying these guys suck because I think we all can tell from just watching the games that, hey, man, these guys suck.
Yeah. It's a long, narrow road to become a sustainable franchise. It's just not going to happen overnight. So everybody's got to be patient. Obviously, we all have our knee-jerk reactions. I'm the king of knee-jerk reactions. Sometimes I have to remind myself that, this process is long. It's not 1 year. It's not 2 years. Sometimes it takes 3-4 years before, the structure of the organization is completely moved on from the past regime and is now this regime.
Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about knee-jerk reactions going back to the Hawks. 2 weeks ago, I was ready to say, hey, man, punt on the season. Get these assholes out of here. They don't belong on the floor. Now I'm like, they could win the East. So, things can change, and they can change in a year. Hey, one great draft class for the Falcons, and boom. I mean, if you think about it, that's all it took from 2015 to 2016. We had a little more talent on the roster, but the big thing was just nailing on some key free agents, even when you don't have a lot of money, and drafting well. That wraps us up for our episode today on this Thursday. We will be back tomorrow